From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Friday, March the 23rd, 2018. Congress today gave final approval of a $1.3 trillion spending bill that includes the Taylor Force Act. The Taylor Force Act is named after 29-year-old American Taylor Force, who was murdered by a Palestinian terrorist in Israel just over 2 years ago. The legislation would halt U.S. funding to the Palestinian Authority until it stops paying stipends to Palestinian terrorists and their families. There are 3 exceptions to that, allowing for U.S. funding to Palestinian water and childhood vaccination programs and to East Jerusalem hospitals. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Dani, welcomed the news, writing on Twitter that the passage of the Taylor Force Act is an important step towards finally ending the despicable practice of pay to slay and ensuring accountability in the Palestinian Authority. He said all countries must demand that the PA invest in a future for Palestinians, not pay terrorist salaries. Associate Executive Director for Policy for the American Jewish Committee, Jason Isaacson, said, "We applaud this important initiative and look to President Trump promptly to sign it into law," adding that Palestinian leadership must understand that the United States will not tolerate its financial aid being diverted to encourage Palestinian terrorism. Israeli leaders expressed their deepest condolences to the people of France today after a deadly terror attack at a supermarket in Trèbes that left 3 people dead and a dozen wounded. The shooter was said to have claimed allegiance to the Islamic State. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote on Twitter that the civilized world must unite and act together to defeat terror. The Prime Minister said he was sending deepest condolences on behalf of the government of Israel for the victims of the attack. Israel's President Reuven Rivlin wrote, "The whole free world must stand united and firm against terror in Jerusalem, in France, and across the world." 3 survivors of the Parkland, Florida school shooting are in Israel. The 3 joined about 200 people gathered in front of the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv today and addressed the crowd. The rally was just one of hundreds of March for Our Lives rallies taking place this weekend around the world to advocate for gun control after the mass shooting. Well, Passover begins a week from tonight, and the city of Jerusalem in particular is on high alert, especially given a recent spate of terror attacks, which included a deadly stabbing in Jerusalem's Old City this past Sunday. The city has seen an increase in deployment of border police and police forces in the Old City in particular, where many Israelis and tourists from around the world will visit during the holiday. The Attorney General of Poland said yesterday that the recently passed Holocaust law was partly unconstitutional. The Attorney General's office published its statement on the website of the Constitutional Court, saying that penalizing acts committed abroad independently of the laws in place there was against the Constitution, and adding that the law could have opposite results than those intended and could undermine the Polish state's authority. The Holocaust law, as we have reported to you, criminalizes accusing or blaming Poland for any responsibility in the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. In a historic flight, Air India flew to Israel yesterday using Saudi airspace. Saudi Arabia and Israel have no diplomatic ties, and the Saudis have banned any use of its airspace for flights to and from the Jewish state. But in what some say is a sign of a warming of relations, permission was granted to Air India a few weeks ago, and its inaugural flight took off from New Delhi to Tel Aviv yesterday. The carrier will now have 3 flights weekly in each direction to Israel. Meanwhile, Israel's national carrier El Al currently operates an India service to Mumbai that takes a detour over the Red Sea to avoid flying over Saudi Arabia and Iran. El Al now wants the same allotment given to Air India for their own flights, which cuts travel time by several hours. And with the approach of Passover, New York kosher soup kitchen Masbia is doing its best to make sure that those in need can enjoy and have everything they need for the holiday. Masbia's annual Charoset Drive points to the Haggadah read on Passover, which proclaims that everyone in need should come and eat. That is Masbia's motto all year long, and the holidays create an even larger need to provide the basic Seder staples and more to feed families this Passover holiday. And taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Friday, March the 23rd, live Shabbat services are coming up at 6 o'clock from New York City's Central Synagogue, followed by a concert at 7:30. At 8, it's a discussion with former UK Chief Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs and Columbia University Professor Simon Schama at the 92nd Street Y on Jewish identity. At 9, it's the documentary Israel Inside. At 10, it's an FIDF luncheon honoring 2 female members of the Israeli Defense Forces. That's from Temple Israel in Westport, Connecticut. And at 10:30, it's Musica. And that's the JBS News Update for Friday, March the 23rd, 2018. I'm Teisha Bader. Shabbat Shalom.